Sounds good.
Cool. So, welcome everyone to Nuestra Experiencia Atea, the programs that promotes positive atheism and the harms of religion. Today, in my constant quest of bringing interesting and amazing people, I have in here Johnny. Mr. Johnny, who are you?
Hello.
Can you tell me who
I
you are and why I have you here?
yeah, you can ask me, and I will tell you. I am Johnny P. Angel, and I am the host of several shows. I am the producer, or one of the producers, of the Nonprofits, which is a news and current events social issue program where we look at that kind of stuff from a secular humanist perspective.
I love that
We've
one.
got You've been on that one, and it was a good episode, and you're going to be coming on again pretty soon. But by the time this airs, who knows when pretty soon will be? Maybe very, very soon. Yeah, we deal with like cult issues, social issues, some apologetics. We deal with church and state issues. That's a big one. We deal with racial issues, gender issues, a lot of stuff. Because in my mind, the atheist, humanist, skeptical humanist stuff that we deal with, some people think it's just about, oh, do you believe in God or not? Why do you believe in God? Why don't you? But that stuff bleeds over. We're always dealing with people taking a particular stance on a law or on a social issue, and they say, well, my faith guides my reasons. And I think that's fair. How do you separate from how do you separate your actions from your thoughts and beliefs? I think it's harder to do that than some people think. And I've seen in the comments on YouTube or on Facebook or wherever, like, well, if they can just keep their religion out of my world, then I'm fine with it. I'm like, I don't know how you do that. And so for me, it's important that we recognize that all this stuff bleeds into everything else. And just because you left religion, this is the big one, just because you left a religion or a cult or whatever you want to call it, doesn't mean that you have purged yourself of all of the baggage, all of the leftover thoughts. A lot of people have issues with racial stuff or ethnic stuff or gender stuff or sexuality stuff. And when you really dig down into it, I think at the root is a belief, something that they picked up along the way of their journey of their life, and some of it's rooted in religion, and they might not even know it. So once they do know it, now you have the responsibility of digging into the reasons why you hold to a certain belief. And I think we have blind spots. I know I do. I know in the 22nd century, someone's going to be saying how regressively offensive Johnny P. Angel was on this one issue, whatever that issue might be. And that's because either I was a product of my time, or I never cast off the Catholicism of my youth, and I didn't even see the problem for what it was. So that's what that show's about. That's the Nonprofits, and that airs at 3 p.m. Central Time on the Atheist Experience Network. I'm not always on it, but I'm involved in just about every episode. But I've got a great team of producers who take the reins just as often as I do, if not more. And we've got a great rotating cast of hosts and guests like yourself, although you're kind of bleeding into what we call the NP, Nonprofits Intimates, folks that we keep around all the time because we really like them and we know we can count on them for some really good content. And then the other show that I just started helping host is Talk Heathen, which is a longer format conversation between callers and the hosts, kind of like Atheist Experience, but longer format, a little kinder in the tone sometimes, repeat callers. And we try to take our time with those calls. Now, every call is going to be different. Somebody might be a real jerk and we get rid of them. Some people might strike a nerve and there will be a reaction. But on the whole, I think we're a bit more patient than the Atheist Experience, because we want to walk a journey with some of those callers, both the theist and the atheist callers. But I think mostly the theist callers, because these are people who are on some level questioning the world around them, whether it's their own beliefs or the beliefs of others, and they want to engage in a conversation. Not everybody who calls is authentically searching for different perspectives. Some are looking to own people, and we don't really like that too much, because that it just becomes a contest to see who wins a fight. And I don't feel like fighting that fight. I'd rather have a conversation and see if we can find some common ground and maybe a direction that we can explore. Maybe that's kind of hippy dippy. I don't know.
Wonderful.
That's me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And well, I would like to know, how is that you mentioned that you were a Catholic child, so
Yes.
I understand the pain. And how is I want to know, how is that a Catholic child like yourself ends up being one of the main faces of modern atheism, spreading at least nowadays?
I'm just another face. I'm just a face in the crowd, but my face is around more often. But thank you, Mateo. How did it happen? I grew up not really having strong beliefs in the religion of my upbringing, except for a brief period where I was watching this preacher man on TV, and he was going on about biblical literalism and the end times, and he had graphs and charts and a timeline. I found that to be very persuasive. I think I was like 11 or 12, maybe 13, probably 12. And for a while there, I thought I was born again. And then the questions came back, like, well, what if this is made up? What if this is just people trying to cash in on a movement? I mean, we see, at the time, I guess I wouldn't have thought this, but we see time and time again, people that get involved in cult environments finding a way to make some sweet cash out of it. But the questions remained. It just seemed like wishful thinking on the part of people, because they were afraid of dying, or they wanted to see their relatives again and they were gone, or they were afraid that they would do bad things if they didn't believe in this giant law enforcer in the sky that would punish those who got away from earthly justice. I don't know. It didn't really stick, even though it stuck to the rest of my family, and not all of them, but most of them. And so then I just kind of did my thing. I studied philosophy in college. I went to law school, allegedly, and became a lawyer, and just kind of went about my business. And then continued to read philosophy and continued to have an interest in world religions and beliefs of different groups of people and myths and folk tales and stuff. And then I stumbled upon the atheist experience, and I'm like, oh, this is fun. They're talking with people. Let's see if there's some good arguments. And I listened to that for a while, realized after a while that show was produced in Austin, Texas, which was where I, was watching it. And I went down to the library and started chatting up the folks, and on and off became friends with people. And then now I'm just friends with a lot of people down there. And it's one of my homes is the ACA, and mostly online these days because we can't see each other in person. But it's been a lot of fun to spend the quarantine making closer connections with viewers and production and hosts and just people who are associated with that community, and yourself included.
Oh, thank
So
you.
that's cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much. And for people who are watching, for my Spanish viewers, the ACA is the Atheist Community of Austin, which is a community that started a long time ago. I have talked about it already, and it's based in Austin, in Texas, USA. And they produce a lot of
Right.
international programs. And yeah, I was going to actually ask you, how is that you ended up being there, going there? You already answered that. So
Sorry.
no, it's okay. It's awesome. So I'm going to go with the next part of this. Why are you doing this? Why do you think that it's important what the ACA is doing and what you are doing now?
I feel that what I'm doing, and I hope that's true, I feel that what I'm doing is contributing to a conversation between and among, let's just say, among non-believing people on how to engage with believing people, folks that have supernatural beliefs and folks who don't. I know that there's a problem with early internet atheism was a very toxic, harsh, vicious, unforgiving combat arena where you either won or you were destroyed. And I don't see that as being particularly productive, because it just ends up making either you give up or you've made an enemy. People tend to shy away when they are embarrassed. People have an uncanny ability to shake off defeat and pretend it never happened. And rather than there being winners and losers, let's take this journey in a particular direction and explore the space and explore the world we live in, the reality we live in. For me, that conversation is happening with, say, open-minded people of faith, some I would say closed-minded, but staunchly believing people of faith who care about truth. And then also those who are trying to escape from, I would say, the chains of a controlling cult or a controlling doctrine. Jehovah's Witnesses are a good example of that, how controlling that group can be. And there are people that leave those communities. They've done the hard work of leaving those controlling communities, and maybe they don't know what to do then. Maybe they don't know how to live a life. You hear about Amish people and Rumspringen, where they leave the Amish communities, which has a regressive attitude towards technologies, and they send them out into the world, and they're lost. And it's scary probably most of the time, because there's this modern world with all of the vices and virtues of a modern world, and they maybe don't know how to navigate it. Well, there's a lot of people that that leave their beliefs, and a lot of times we've heard callers. What do I do now? How do I have a meaningful life? What's right? What's wrong? How do I have conversations with my family members, my coworkers? How do I tolerate seeing this frustration I have? Let me rephrase that. How do I deal with this built up energy that I have when I see all this bad stuff in the world that I attribute to religion? And I want to be there for those conversations. I don't have any great answers or anything like that, but I think about this stuff, and maybe by talking with those people, we can figure it out together. Sometimes just having a person you can talk to, even if they're on the internet, sometimes can be very comforting. And I know I get a lot out of it, because one works, one has fun, one does a lot of things, but if you want to have a meaningful life, it kind of helps to be working towards something that you find valuable. And I do paintings and I play a little guitar. I'm not good at all, but I'm not good at painting either. But those are recreations. What's nice about the atheist advocacy, if you can call what I do atheist advocacy or activism, is that it does involve making a human contact with people, even if it's only over the phone, where there's two minds interacting, and hopefully we leave a little better prepared, a little more patient, a little more informed than we were beforehand. And that goes both ways, between the callers and the hosts. So that's why I do it. It's not to dunk on theists. I don't find any value in that. I don't need to win every conversation. I don't feel that there is a win necessarily around the corner for me on a call, unless the person says, well, that's a really good question. I'm going to think about that some more. I'm going to get more information. I'm going to come back to you, Johnny, and let's continue this. That's a win, right? Even if they come back with more of the same, but a little more difficult for me to address, I'll take it. That sounds great.
Great. Awesome. Cool. Genial. Yeah, you were talking about a lot of stuff there that I wanted to ask you. For example, about the harms of religion, because I always talk about the harms of religion.
Yeah.
I recently made an episode about this dead children in Canada, which totally destroyed me, and I'm still trying to overcome that. And I want to ask you, what do you think are the biggest harms or the biggest harm that religion creates in general in our world?
There's a bit. I talked about the. Can I use a bad word? Can I use?
Totally, you will be that. So I can decide if it
Okay,
goes or I go with a
that's
lighter
true. That's
version.
true. Yeah, yeah. The shit in the applesauce. I think there's a lot of good stuff with religion. Is not my phrase. It's someone from the old AXP episodes, the old Atheist Experience shows, said the shit in the applesauce. I don't remember who it is, and I'm trying to figure out who it was because I think it's a good one. There's good stuff in religion. There's bad stuff. The problem is it's hard to tell where the good ends and where the bad begins. And you don't know what you're getting into until you really critically examine it. I think the biggest problem that religion does is that it teaches people to leave a space, a sacred space around certain ideas, and that you can question around it, but you can't question the ideas themselves. I think nothing is sacred in that sense. Ideas should be questioned. That's how we're able to talk right now, Matteo. I mean, because what can be done with rocks banging together was questioned. Oh, we can do this. And suddenly we have technology, and suddenly we have, you know, international communication and computers and stuff. I think that by creating these spaces where certain things cannot be questioned because you're committing an unforgivable sin or you are treading upon the profane, you allow for those sacred concepts to be reflected in the world. And so you'll have certain people who can't be questioned, certain distributions of resources cannot be questioned, certain political forces can't be questioned, certain ways of representing yourself, gender wise, or however that might be, become unmalleable, if that's a word, unmalleable. They cannot be changed. It was, it is, it must always be. And if you don't feel that that's right for you, then that's a you problem, not a society problem. And we've seen time and time again individuals who are willing to question and bring us a little bit further along show that society isn't simple. It's not A or B. Sometimes there's A.1, B.2, and there's a lot more options available. And if we operate with critical thinking skills at the forefront and compassion right alongside, and realize that everyone has a right to live and live in peace and safety, as long as they're not hurting others, then we're going to continue to make progress. That progress, the destination, there is none, but the direction that we're going is undetermined. We're in it. We have an active role in it. And I think that's another thing that religion can do, is tell us where the goal is. And that if you're not working toward that one goal, well, then you're bad, or you're somehow not living a correct life. The truth is, we don't know what our society is going to look like in 1,000 years if we're lucky enough to even have a society. And I would like to think that with the principles of compassion and skepticism and general humanism as a motivating factor in the way that we move forward, that we will get to a place where more people can enjoy the resources that we have on this earth, who can enjoy freedoms of personal expression and fulfillment and engagement, rather than being outsiders. At this point, it's 2021. Why do we have people that are outsiders anymore? You would think that we would all be welcomed into the fold, and we'd all just be trying to work on, I don't know, solving diseases, getting to Mars, and I don't know, faster than light travel, something like that. So,
Right. Good.
yeah.
Those are very good words, very wise words. I think you're a very wise person, Johnny.
You are so full of it, Matteo, but I'll take it. I'll take all your compliments.
That's cool. That's cool. So, I like learning from wise people. So I have to ask you, what do you think that we can do in order to improve our society, to make things better for every person? Uh, because I know most of us, we don't have many tools, we don't have many things to do, but we can do a small thing. In Spanish, we say, oh, in English as well, right? To put your grain of sand. So How can we help to make society a better place according to you from a secular point of view?
Well, I think we can create spaces where dialogue can take place without there being a complete destruction of the other as a goal. I think that we can be prepared to articulate the reasons why we think something should be so, and be ready to look at other people's disagreement as truly a disagreement and an honest attempt to figure out the world and to make the world a better place. Most of the time, our interactions are cooperative. We go to the store, we buy things, we see people, we get on the bus, we do whatever we do. And most of the time, it's either indifference or it's cooperation, I think. There are those moments where there is competition. And for those instances, we need to be prepared to compete and be gracious winners and gracious losers, if that's what we need to be. But I think that by fostering an environment where disagreement can take place without the whole world collapsing, on focusing on the big issues, sure, the big, sexy, large issues where the whole society is at stake, that's important. But most of what we do on a daily basis is very small things. And when the quarantine happened, there's a lot of talk, and I don't know what the numbers are on this, but like, have you reached out to your grandmother if your grandmother is still alive? Have you reached out to that awful uncle or that awful aunt or the lady down the street who doesn't have anybody? Looking after each other, making sure that the small things you do are calculated to increase the well-being of the people in the world that you share. Taking care of yourself, of course, because you don't want to become an empty vessel, but also thinking about individuals, thinking about their well-being. I think that when you start doing that, you see these politicians who talk about, they have these hardline positions on a particular social issue, whether it's gay rights or abortion or whatever it might be. And then it's only until they have a family member who identifies or is in that position that they had previously smacked down, that now they see that there's some subtlety, there's some gray area. Well, it affects my daughter. Maybe it affects other people's daughters. Maybe this person needs to be treated with respect and their wishes honored. If we do that, we might find in our own lives areas where the black and white falls apart to gray and maybe more colors still. It's kind of like hippy-dippy poetical, but it's true. There's so much in this world that's going on, and I think if we're really paying attention, we can find something to make better.
Wonderful.
If we want to.
Yeah, that sounds great. So yeah, this interview has been amazing. You are awesome. You have all the answers, and I think I think that now I should go with the interesting part. What would you tell to people to the Hispanic public who are listening to you? What would you tell to them? Any advice to the Spanish-speaking people?
Okay. Well, my Spanish is terrible, so I'm not going to say it in Spanish, although I will say it in Spanish through your translation. I would say it's the same thing. I know that in Latin America, for example, it's a much more religious environment than a lot of different parts of the world. We did an episode on this, Mateo, you and I, and the rest of the nonprofits. And although I see the United States of America as being a little bit further along in secularism, I see that Latin America, certainly, and Spain is an entirely different story all by itself, but Latin America is ripe. It's blooming with new opportunities to secularize these countries. And you don't have to take the same paths that the United States did as it secularized, although arguably it was secular, then it got religious, and now it's desecularizing, and arguably it's secularizing again. There are so many different cultures within Latin America, so many different nuances, different ways of doing things, different cultural norms. And I'm excited to see how the creative people in Latin America and other Spanish-speaking places will find ways to make their world function on a more human level, to serve man, to serve humans, not to serve spiritual grand beings that exist outside of time and space. We see that with, I know Argentina recently made abortion legal after many attempts to do so. I know that a lot of countries in Latin America have suffered under the burden of oppressive regimes, dictatorships, populists who run certain countries, manipulating the people. Those ideas of humanism, of skepticism, critical thinking, as applied in the political world and in the world of philosophy, the world of culture, will aid anyone in any country to get toward a society that is geared towards serving the interests of human beings and avoiding the pitfalls of uncritical populism, maybe in the case of Bolsonaro, maybe in the case of the many dictatorships that have sprung up in Latin America in past decades, admittedly sponsored in large part by U.S. actions in Latin America, much to the shame of any American. But critical thinking and a desire for compassion, I think that whenever we become so myopically focused on a goal, and we're willing to sacrifice anything to get to that goal, there will be dead bodies along the way. And I just don't think there's a need to do that. I think that if we keep the well-being of individual humans in mind, we can make our progress. We can be firm. We can push forward. We can secularize. We can respect the rights of different groups of people that might not be us along the way. And people, if they see that we're making progress, that has demonstrable benefits and improved standards of living, rights of women, better education, better healthcare, whatever it might be, they're gonna probably want to join. And rather than moving forward with force, we had a call last week that on Talk Heathen that just reminded me of that. Somebody wanting to ban religious indoctrination of children, and it just kind of sounded scary. It sounded like I said, a myopic focus on a particular goal, and all I could think of was somebody arresting parents for teaching their children how to use the rosary, and it just I don't think that's the way to go. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, I think that you have answered everything that I wanted to ask you, and you have been an amazing guest in here. Thank you so much for being here with us, Johnny.
Thank you for having me. Do you drink mate, Mateo?
Once in a while, yes. I like it. It's interesting. I used to like it because of the sugar, though. So.
Oh, you add the sugar to it. Do you have a brand that you enjoy, or do you just kind of like it all, whatever it comes to you?
Actually, my grandmother prepares mate with her own herbs. So.
No kidding.
Yep. She lives in the countryside, so she picks them up, and that's how we drink mate.
Can I ask as a favor? Can you get if your grandmother's still with us? Can you get some of that to me? I'd love it. I'd love to try that.
I will have to ask. I haven't seen my grandma in such a long time.
That's a big ask, I know. Well, if she sends you some.
Okay. If I can get it, I promise I will send it to you. Maybe with a Neash t-shirt.
Yeah, I'll pay for shipping. I'll pay for shipping. It's my request. Thanks, Mateo.
Okay, so thank you so much, and we are going to finish with that final note this episode. Thank you everybody for watching, and see you next week. And thank you for being here, Johnny.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, and